The Exodus Jubilee commemorative coin is produced in honor of the pioneers of the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. It commemorates the improbable journey of a people from captivity to liberation following the instructions of Yah Yisrael through his anointed servant, Ben Ami. In remembering how we've been led and by whom, we are compelled to realize the magnitude of what has been accomplished by the pioneers of this great miracle called the Kingdom of Yah on earth. No words adequately capture the faith, courage, steadfastness, loyalty, and perseverance required of these extraordinary spirits. To hear the voice of the Creator through Ben Ami, literally one of their own, and be propelled beyond the popular turbulence of the 60s, the Black Power and Civil Rights movements, is virtually unimaginable. Their humility set in motion a reconciliatory process that pointed the way back to Yah, the source of true life and freedom. With all of their heart, soul, and might, these precious souls accepted the challenge of sanctifying a new and redemptive path for our people. It is safe to say that in the course of human history, no other event has so positively impacted upon the destiny of the creation as has the 1967 exodus of the African Hebrew Israelites from America to the Promised Land. Thus, we count it a tremendous blessing to have this opportunity to express our eternal gratitude to the Holy One of Israel for having raised up the anointed and returned our people to the land of our fathers. Ancient history. The identity of the ancient Hebrews has been arguably one of the most sensitive and controversial topics among the family of nations upon this earth. During the great spiritual famine of hearing the word of Yah prophesied by Amos the prophet, Amos 8 and 11, truth was rendered inaccessible in a world dominated by a very evil anti-Yah civilization. It was during this span of time, the age of deception under the Euro-Gentile dominion, that the children of Israel fell victim to an evil influence and lost the understanding of the true worship of Yah, the Creator. Subsequently, as a result of occupation of the Holy Land by the Romans in 70 CE, they found themselves dispersed and driven further into the African Edenic continent, where eventually a significant portion of Israelites were taken captive into the holds of ships in fulfillment of the prophetic word of Yah spoken by Moses, the lawgiver, in the book of Deuteronomy 28 and 68. The experience that followed in the New World marks the most horrific tragedy. The former standard bearers of Yah were decimated under the yoke of American chattel slavery. For over 400 years, the captives would exist as less than human, enduring unthinkable horrors such as murder, lynchings, rape, maiming, and many other forms of physical torture, producing psychological trauma that persists up to this very day. So for a people so totally dominated and thoroughly subjugated under the threat of death, under the will of a merciless kind of man, over the span of centuries, the prospect of having to be responsible for their own destiny was a daunting one, to say the least. Reduced to the level of beasts of the field, the captive Israelites found themselves trapped within a social construct biblically referred to as hell, thoroughly acculturated and with no knowledge or understanding as to why. Even freedom time, alternately termed the Reconstruction era, the period immediately following Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation and on up to the Civil Rights era, was saturated with constant and continual abuses, blatant contradictions, and the usurpations of rights gained and paid for with literal blood, sweat, and tears. Again, as Amos the prophet stated, it was as if a man did flee from a lion and a bear met him, or went into a house and leaned his hand on the wall and a serpent bit him. Amos 5 and 19. It is only from this historical perspective that the great mercy and power of Yah Yisrael can be placed in proper context and the hand of providence fully understood. It is through the lens of that nightmare that the prophetic 45-second vision would pierce the soul of a man-child called Ben-Ami, the son of my people, the first fruit of salvation. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom, which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Daniel 2:44. For Ben-Ami, like many of the prophets and messengers before him, there was a period of trepidation, great anguish, and denial. He did not want to mislead his people. He did not want to be ostracized. But though initially reluctant, feeling himself to be inadequate or not the most qualified for such a sacred charge, he would eventually share with the other members of the Beta Israel Hebrew Cultural Center the angel's words, that it was time to begin the journey back to the Promised Land and to establish the long-awaited kingdom of Yah on earth, and that the year of the Exodus would be 1967. Shortly after his speaking the words of the angel, we now know, looking back in retrospect, that the United States erupted in fire as riots stretched the length and breadth of America, creating the impetus and environment for approximately 350 individuals to hear and follow him into the interior of Liberia in fulfillment of the angel's words. But upon arrival, these neophytes would quickly realize that it is one thing to talk about the Exodus while still in an American forest preserve, but quite another when actually living inside of Sears and Roebuck's tents 100 miles inside the bush of Liberia, West Africa. Literally having to carve out some semblance of life, they were totally unprepared for what they faced. It is here that the true test of their resolve would come. It was here that they would be humbled to learn just how ill-equipped and vulnerable the former slave master in America had made them. Because of conditioning and the assumption that food grows on a shelf in a store, they found themselves starving, while all the while surrounded by food in the natural vegetation of the land. 3 of every 4 individuals would succumb to the unfamiliar hardships and return to the United States of America, unable to watch their babies and once strapping young men emaciated from malnourishment and malaria. The alleged waterproof tents withered under the weight of Liberia's monsoon rains and sweltering heat. There were dangers on every side of them in that they were now sharing living space with the green and black mamba snakes, the infamous and relentless African driver ants, and any number of other hidden dangers, the greatest of which would be the Euro-American mind and lifestyle. But as Yah puts it into the hearts of men to fulfill his will, Brother Ben, as Ben-Ami was called, would learn to extract seeds of truth from the wind and to plant them in the hearts of individuals in order that they might bring forth the substance needed. Soon the indigenous Liberian brothers and sisters would begin to share with the pioneers the African Edenic way, and with the application of that knowledge came the power to change their thoughts, transform their environments, and the ability to more fully understand their purpose. This would be a turning point as they would quickly learn to identify edible plants, how to build more durable dwellings, and how to harmonize with the people and the new environment. Through all of this trial by fire, it was the word of the living Yah in the leadership and instructions of a then 27-year-old Ben-Ami that motivated these valiant souls to move from the shadow of death to a position of strength, transforming their wilderness experience to a virtual paradise. After 2.5 years, the challenges that had initially threatened to end it all had proven to be an initiation of sorts, as the once neophytes would turn their eyes and hearts towards Jerusalem as tried and proven soldiers for Yah Yisrael. And on the Day of Atonement, 1970, against insurmountable odds, they did in fact proclaim the coming of the kingdom of Yah Yahuwah in Jerusalem, Israel, Northeast Africa. Though there may be many who will never understand the great sacrifice that has been made on behalf of all of humanity. The history of these impregnable men, women, and children testifies of their divinely appointed mission. Their exceedingly great works bring newfound clarity to the prophecies and provide a modern address for the throne of David in this, the kingdom age. So to you, our venerated pioneers, we thank Yah for allowing us the opportunity to vindicate the decisions that you've made, and vow never to allow the adversaries of Yah the opportunity to write the last chapter of our history. To those whose unshakable faith and unwavering commitment and determination affords us the blessing of being called by your names, the chosen first fruit of Yah salute you. Nihalel Yah! Hallelujah! 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 Commemorating the pioneers of the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem.